This is the story of the solar Cannonball Run, Leg 1. I'm headed to New York, specifically the Red Ball Garage, because that's where you have to start. Traffic here is kind of crazy getting in, so while I get there, I'll tell you the story of how I learned about the Cannonball Run and what it means to me. So in a seemingly unrelated story, a few years ago, I decided I wanted to read more. And I thought, what better way than to buy an expensive, fancy gadget? And the iPad had just come out, but it wasn't really very powerful and not many apps at the time or not much use. But the Kindle DX had just come out, and this was a big e-reader. It had a month of battery life, and I thought, yeah, that's what I need. So I got it. And I'm showing people at work. It's a cool new gadget I got, telling them I'm going to read more. And someone suggests a book. They say, hey, you should read The Driver by Alex Roy. I'm like, huh, sounds interesting. I've never read a fiction book before, thinking to myself, this could be a fiction book I've never read for fun. So I start reading, and it's pretty interesting. He's talking about this Cannonball Run, about outfitting his car, doing all these modifications to it, radar detection, night vision, gyroscopic stabilizing binoculars, and all this really cool stuff. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's pretty cool. He's talking about this race and all these rallies he's doing and going on. And I'm getting so into this story, I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be the first fiction book I read cover to cover. But here's the thing. On the Kindle, you don't really read cover to cover. I just jumped right in, page 1, chapter 1, started reading. And pages turn kind of slow. You push the button and you wait for it to refresh the next page. So you're not really getting this typical feedback from a regular book. So I'm reading, and I get about halfway through the book, and all of a sudden there's some pictures. And I'm looking at these pictures, and it's just like described in the story. It's a BMW M5, blue color, all the stuff that was described is in the car. I'm thinking to myself, man, they built the car just for this book? I'm like, nah, wait a second. This isn't a fiction story. This is a true story. This actually happened. So I go over to Google real quick and type it in, and sure enough, it's a true story. Well, there goes my first attempt at reading a fiction book. So I guess I never have read a fiction book cover to cover. But I kept reading. It was pretty interesting. I really liked it. It always kind of stuck out in my mind, this Cannonball Run, where you go from the Red Ball Garage to the Portofino Inn Hotel in L.A. So that's the story of the Cannonball Run. Now, what does it mean to me? Well, I just think it's cool, all the preparation, the planning, the efficiency, because it's not just about going really fast. Anyone can go really fast, but it's about going fast efficiently, not using up too much fuel, having every stop planned out. Okay, here it is. Solar Cannonball Run. Okay, about to leave the Red Ball Garage. Time is 12:23 a.m. and it is October 3rd, and I am hitting the road, so we'll see you later. So here goes. I'm officially on the way. Now, I intentionally left kind of late at night because I need to drive slow. For this to work, I got to be really efficient. I got to extend my range as far as possible, and the slower the better. And typically between, say, 1 and 4 a.m. in the morning, all the trucks get off the road, and you got kind of a clear shot to drive. So I put in the trip computer, my first stop, Shenandoah National Park, and it says negative 14%. So I deleted all the supercharger stations, and that's what the computer thinks I'll be at when I get there. So I had run some calculations, and I think I can make it. The tricky part is, it's not that it is 330 miles, but it's 330 miles mostly flat, and then right at the end you got to go up almost 4,000 feet in altitude. And I'm carrying a little bit of extra weight too. I figure I've got at least 1,000 pounds extra in the car, maybe more. So all that extra mass, getting that up into the mountains is going to take a lot of energy. So I estimated it at about 10 kilowatt hours. And the Tesla's got a 75 kilowatt hour battery. So it's got 75, and I figure 10 of it is going to be used just to get up the hill. So I've only got 65 left to get all the way there. So 330 miles, well, that's easy when you got 75. But if you're going to do it with 65 kilowatt hours, well, you need to maintain watt hour per mile of about 196. That's kind of the equivalent in electric vehicles of miles per gallon. It's just a metric version. So watt hours is just energy per mile instead of gallons, which is, in a sense, energy per mile. So the next question is full self-driving. Do I do that? Do I do autopilot? Do I drive manually? What do I do? The thought is, if I use nothing, it's probably more efficient in terms of just pure power, because I won't be running all the electronics to automate the car. On the other hand, if I'm completely driving manually, no cruise control, I'll be speeding up and slowing down, and I won't be as smooth on the throttle. So I probably want to use at least cruise control, and maybe auto steer, and maybe full self-driving. So I thought, well, this first leg, I'll just try two. I'll try full self-driving, and I'll try autopilot. And autopilot is, well, I've never had full self-driving before. I got it for this trip because I thought, well, it's 1 month. I can afford 1 month subscription, but I'm not shelling out $200 every month for a feature on a car, even as cool as it is. But when you've got full self-driving, it's a lot different than I expected. You know, when you have autopilot, it doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence in full self-driving because it makes a lot of kind of weird decisions, stuff you wouldn't do normally driving. And it shows you what it sees, and what you see are kind of two different things. Like, yeah, it's not really picking up a lot of what's going on around me. I don't think I'd trust it just based on my experience with autopilot. But when you throw the switch and you go into full self-driving, all of a sudden the car is way more aware. It's showing traffic in other lanes on the other side of the interstate. It's showing, you know, where the grass line starts, where the end of the pavement is, all these things that in autopilot you don't see. So it's definitely pretty cool. But I figure it's got to use a lot of power. I mean, having this feed of all these cameras coming in, processing it, and figuring out all this stuff real time. I guess it's got two computers doing simultaneous calculations for redundancy. They always have to agree, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know, maybe it takes 500 watts or more to run the system. So that's just all power that I could be using to drive the car. So I did the first 150 miles with it on, and then I switched over to autopilot. And it's kind of inconclusive. I actually did a little better on autopilot than full self-driving, but I was speeding up and slowing down because of traffic, so it's kind of hard to tell, you know, what was playing into the equation. So at this point, inconclusive. Maybe I can try some more and get kind of a number, but unless you did two exact runs, same conditions, you know, same strip of road, same tailwind, headwind, all that, it'd be really hard to tell. Of course, Tesla's got the number, and they could just say, hey, it takes 750 watts, but they're not going to tell us. So here I am trying to drive slow. I've got full self-driving on. For part of the leg, I was kind of in the middle lane, and so semis were passing on the right, and there's people to pass on the left. And then once it drops down to 2 lanes, I kind of hunker over into the right lane and slow down and try and drive 10 miles an hour under the limit. Sometimes I have to go a little faster just because I was in city traffic. It was really packed. I didn't want to clog up the whole city there. But for the most part, I was able to maintain at least 10 under, sometimes even less. So when there's really no one on the road, you can really throttle it back, and that really helped with the efficiency. Okay, this is a midpoint update. I'm sitting here looking at superchargers, but I don't need it because I've been doing pretty good. 208 watt hours per mile, 165 miles so far. And that's what it's saying. I get there at 3%. Although, as I was saying, it accounts for elevation, but does it know I'm probably 1,000+ pounds heavier? So here's the chart. You can see here, that's where the elevation change is. You can see the extra battery use. Okay, so as I get back on the road here, what was looking good is suddenly not so good. It's down to 0% pretty soon, and it keeps dropping. So I don't know what's going on because I've still got this hill climb left, and I'm thinking the computer is probably underestimating the power to get up the hill. So I'm getting kind of nervous and trying to go slow, but it's getting a little later in the morning, and the truck traffic is back on the road, and it's really difficult to go slow. So you can see all these trucks just passing me, but and they're up right behind you. It's kind of difficult. So I'm trying not to annoy too many people as I'm driving slow, but hey, I've got to do what you got to do. So they only have to drive by and look at me in disdain once as they see me driving 10 under. But I have to sit here and get passed by hundreds of vehicles, knowing that I'm annoying every single one of them. I mean, I'd annoy myself if I had to come up on someone going 10 under. But yeah, it's just a one-time thing, right? So anyhow, that's what I'm doing, just cruising. And as I'm recording this, actually in my tent here at one of my stops, I'll just kind of let you hear the ambient sound of my tent camping as we finish up this part of the night. All right, this is not looking good. I'm at -4% on arrival, and it's dropping fast. Traffic's really heavy. It's really hard to go slow, so all right, got to pay attention here. So even though the battery power's not looking good, everything else is going pretty smooth, and I'll kind of speed this one up a little bit more, but I kind of end up riding into the sunrise, which is kind of cool. And I see kids out waiting for the bus stop. But the nice thing is I'm on this country road, and the speed limit, I think it was 55, and there was nobody out there. There's like a trash truck and kids waiting for the bus. So I slowed way down, was able to conserve some energy and kind of get back to that 0% arrival projection. So that was good after kind of going through some city traffic and using up a lot more power than I anticipated. So next up is, do I make it? All right, I'm so tired, but here we are. We're at 3% and we're not there. And I don't have GPS signal or data. Oh, no, it's coming back. So I do, but I got 3% battery. It is not enough to make it up. I've still got like 1,000 feet of elevation to go, and it's just not going to do it. It says it's very low. Okay, let's see.
Now turn right onto Skyline Drive.
Okay, so that's the distance we have to go. It says 0%, 15 miles, but it's been chewing up battery really quick. So gosh, what do I do? Let's see. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to go down a little bit and then up and then down and up and down. Get there at 0%. But I have a backup plan. So I didn't want to have to do this, but I think I'm going to have to do this. Let's go. Okay, we're ready for backup plan. Just enough to get over this pass. Oh man, I'm so tired. Oh. The problem is this cable is buried under all of this. Oh man. So what I'm debating here is pulling out the charger, and I left with a full battery, the battery in the back, which is 5 kilowatt hours, and if I dump that into the car, it'll get me about another 5%. So I'm thinking, maybe it's time to drain that battery into the car, but all the charge cables are in the back of the sub trunk, and I've got all my stands for the solar panels packed in there. And I got 64 of them. So that means I got to take all of those out and then pull the wire out and then charge it. And then I got to sit there for an hour charging it because the max current's 100 amps and it's a 100 amp hour battery. So, and I'm thinking to myself, it says 0%. And my backup plan is, well, I think they got a reserve on these things. They say 75 kilowatt hours, but I think it's got an 80 kilowatt hour, which means it's got 5% or another 5 kilowatt hours in there. So at this point, I'm like, you know what? I'll just use the reserve. If I get there a little negative, I get there a little negative. Okay, so it's a little past noon, and I've got the solar array set up. All 64 panels. There's my tent, the car. Let's check out the charge rate. I'm charging at 4 kilowatts or 18 amps at 240 volts. And let's look at our solar power. So we're getting 6.3 kilowatts in and 4.19 going to the car and 1.88 going to the battery. So the array is a 6.4 kilowatt array, and I'm getting 6.3, which, considering these are flexible panels and it's not the summer, it's past the equinox, I would say that's spectacular performance. So it's working out pretty good. And then I've got a tent, pretty big tent, got a queen size air mattress, got a little power station, and everything I need for the trip, so I can chill out in this tent and make myself at home while everything charges. All right, I just woke up, slept pretty good, got a lot of work to do. Gonna get a shower, make some breakfast, and get the day started.